All right,
Okay.
welcome to the Break Glass podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Coco. They call me Cup of Cocoa. And today we have a very, very special guest. Thank you to my friend, Laura Smith. Give her a huge shout out. She's awesome. She introduced me to this amazing, incredible woman, Dr.
Woo!
Rachel Fenters. Dr. Rachel, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. I'm very excited.
Thank you. So basically, what our podcast is about is strong women who have overcome
Mhm.
something, adversity, they break through the glass ceiling or they face the glass cliff. And I had the opportunity to research your story because of my friend Laura Smith, who was like, you have got to meet Dr. Rachel. So I'm super inspired by your story and I can't wait for our audience to hear it. So if you don't mind, Dr. Rachel, I'm just going to share a few things that you wrote in a blog post and then have you comment on it if that's
Oh,
okay.
absolutely. Perfect.
So my friend here, my new friend, Dr. Rachel, is Miss for America Strong. So she has been competing in pageants since when, Dr. Rachel?
Well, since I was quite a young girl, I started probably about 7 years old.
7 years old, and she goes
Mm,
on to not just win Miss for America Strong, but pageant after pageant and becomes a physician. So we're going to
mhm,
explore the journey from pageant to physician here and see
mhm.
what you have had to overcome. So this
Right.
is, I wrote this down and I fell in love with this blog post. I'm telling you, like
Did
super
you?
touching. Yeah. And it's titled Going from Top to Bottom. And she
Mhm,
writes, she goes on to highlight the rigors of medical school, which was
mhm,
amazing. And the precise measurement of time has been filled with tears, sleepless nights, and what seems to be a hearty length of mental suffering that has led to a
mhm.
season of consequential questioning. And she goes on to talk about questioning, even though she is a Christian. So we know that you accomplish that purpose. But how difficult, my first question would be, how difficult was it to have people take you seriously coming from this pageant world? Did they always?
No, but
Okay.
they didn't. But I did. I took myself seriously. How I the intro on how I met Miss Laura
Hmm.
was I was a teenager competing for Miss South Carolina teen, and she was my director. And so she helped guide me. She was a positive influence, a voice when I was vulnerable and a teenager and growing and learning. She was a positive voice to help shape me and who I would become. And that particular time in my life, that season of me competing for Miss South Carolina teen, I can remember my interview very clearly. I didn't win. I didn't place the top 10 that year, but I remember my interview very clearly. And the question was, how would you define success? A 15-year-old girl answered this question. I define success by losing. When I lose, I see who I am. I see what I need to grow in, where I need to get better in, and then I become successful after experiencing loss. And those words would shape me for years to come because I learned that it wasn't just natural strength you had to be a strong woman. It was facing adversity. It was being weak in order to become strong. It was losing in order to be successful. It was seeing what I was worth and how many times I was going to stand back up when people told me no. People told my dad and mom that I wouldn't be able to get into medical school because I went to a Christian college. um
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, people all the time don't take pageant girls seriously, but what people don't understand is this is about personal growth. Personal growth. You set a goal, you challenge yourself, you go outside of your comfort zone, and then you present the version that has overcome adversity. That's what I need in the pageant world. So going back to Miss Laura, I had such a strong positive influence. The voices that I listened to mattered to me. if people questioned me, they had their rights, but I listened to the voices I knew were going to elevate me to be the best version of myself.
That
So
strong
even,
positive voice, that she's
yes,
one for me as well. Like, even
yes,
now, and she was impacting your life even at such a young age. And I'm sure you guys are still great friends. She couldn't help but
yeah.
talk so kindly about you.
So I think this is a crucial point to all those people out there, that if they are wanting to be the best version of themselves, they have to choose who to listen to.
Hmm.
People may ask you questions, they may have their opinions, but your voice needs to be the one that you listen to the most. And then you need to assess the other people who are speaking into your life, and if they have a critical discussion, if they have critical thinking, if they have positive input, if they have encouragement, then you allow those people to shape you. But if not, those people are just questions. You have to know who you are and speak from that place of understanding.
I like how the message that you gave in answering that question during that interview, was it more for you or was it for everybody else? I feel like that message that you took and you shared with everybody was like you were kind of giving it to yourself too. That was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
every time I speak is for me too.
Yep.
It's for me. It's always for me. Every single time I've been on I'm changing subjects, but
No, go ahead.
I like to do medical missions. And when I go to a mission trip, you think about what you give to people, the medical equipment, the medicine, the fact that they haven't seen a doctor in years. But what you get is so much more. It's humanity and compassion at its finest. So that makes me realize that everything I do is for people, but it's also for me. It's a mutual exchange, a meaningful exchange. And that's how I want to live my days.
I know for me, I had the pleasure of kind of reading about how one trip basically changed your life in
Mhm.
wanting to become that doctor. Can you share a bit more
Mhm.
about that?
Yeah. So it was about 2010, and I was on a trip to Africa, and I went to Kenya and Ethiopia, and particularly Ethiopia. I just remember being on a field and seeing these children and these adults and being called to them in a way that shaped me. I knew that my gifting and my purpose in my life was for other people, was to help take care of them, and not just their physical bodies, because wholeness and health is so much more than medical conditions. It's the treatment of your mind. It's how you think about yourself. It's how you eat. Uh, all these things, I knew in that moment that it was my calling and my gifting and my purpose to take care of people. And so every time I'm in the hospital now and I struggle, I remember that moment usually, because I know without a doubt that that was a moment that shaped my life and continues to guide me into the future when I have questions about what I'm doing.
What was the hardest part about competing in pageants? Like, what did you really learn and take away? I don't think that there's enough. I get to talk to, I have the privilege of talking to Laura Smith, who talks to me
Yeah.
about pageants and still competing and the things that she's learned and the things that she's overcome and the people that she's helped. And it's so
Mhm.
amazing. You see it from the outside, or maybe I've seen it from the outside, and you
Mhm.
think you don't really know the competitive nature and really what
Mhm.
these women learn. So can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part is really actually believing in yourself.
Hmm.
The competition, I'm all about competition. I'm a doctor. I compete in pageants. I've done all sorts of dance competitions. I love competition, but it's actually the competition with yourself. That's what matters the most. Asking yourself, is this the best I can be? Am I doing this for the right reasons? The investment I made in my voice, that is the hardest bit of it. And then getting out there, I won I won a national competition. Mrs. America organization has been around for 46 years. And so when I went out to Las Vegas for 12 days, you get up every day at 5 a.m., you get your hair and makeup done, and you're ready for rehearsals and events and photo shoots. And it honestly is a marathon. And so the whole time you're out there, you're competing with girls, but you're also competing with yourself. Can I make it? Can I be engaged? Can I have meaningful conversation? Am I going to have enough energy to walk on the stage? Am I going to have the mental clarity to talk to judges and to give them a message of hope? Am I going to be able to talk on the microphone and be the beacon of hope that I know inside myself? So you have to keep pressing against fatigue and tired, complete lethargy at times. You've gotten 4 hours of sleep and you have to walk in 6-inch heels. But the statistic is that it's easier for a son to be in the NFL than it is for a daughter to win on the national pageant stage. And
That's
so
amazing.
sometimes we don't think about things like that and all the things that it goes into, but you really have to have a sort of resilience, a mental resilience that says, I'm here and I'm not going to let anything take me out or stop me from being the best version of myself.
Just a quick story about my friend Laura. So we go to events together or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and just what she's learned and applies to me, what I really enjoy. And I found immediately when I started to talk to you, Dr. Rachel, it's very positive energy. You get that very positive energy from certain people. But we would do these events, she would be like, it's a pageant weekend, girls, you just put the makeup back on, let's go, it's a pageant weekend. And she would make us all feel really, really positive about ourselves. And it wasn't like this competition against one another or anything like that. It was like we were this one big family and we're helping each other with clothing and doing all at an event of our own, not a pageant, obviously. But she took it and applied it to our like world, and we all became better people because of it. So when I hear you kind of saying like, hey, you're tired or you're doing this or doing that, I'm like, I kind of remember, her speaking on that.
Yeah, exactly. And because we've already established that I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, there is a Bible verse that says that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and which means that we have the ability to change our environment through the thoughts that we have and the words that we say, and even the posture, a smile. I was in high school and I had no idea that a smile could impact. I had a girl tell me 24 hours after I smiled at her that she was thinking about committing suicide that day.
Oh, no.
And because I chose to smile at her with a genuine heart, she didn't want to commit suicide. We ended up being friends after that for years to come, but it just goes to show you that what we say matters, how we treat people matters, how we treat ourselves matters. And people need someone who is genuine and willing to be themselves and willing to be vulnerable enough to say, hey girls, let's smile. Let's bring the energy.
It's so true. So, I'm listening to you and I adore you. I love this story so much and just the inspiration that comes from it. But I'm thinking of this teenage girl. I'm thinking of you traveling to Africa and Ethiopia and really just, putting your all into this beauty pageant world, but also being a Christian and having faith and knowing your calling. But I'm wondering, at what point were you starting to share, I want to be a doctor?
Yeah, so that was about 19 years old. And then I put everything into that. Pageants weren't important to me anymore. My purpose was. And so that's where I started to develop this language of things that were guiding me: purpose, passion, and power. And so from a 19-year-old heart, I knew that my purpose was to become a doctor. My passions were things like pageant, speaking to women, being able to share my story, but it was through my purpose and being challenged and being insecure and feeling defeated and feeling like I couldn't do it that that power came. I
Mm,
had to go through pain first. And a lot of people, I think we try to avoid pain, especially in the hospital, especially patients. You know, we have this idea that pain can be treated with a pill. And what we don't know is the sort of power that comes when we grow from our pain. And it was during that time of medical school when I wasn't the first in my class, when
mhm.
I didn't have a strong support system, because medical school is not for the socialite. You know, it's from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. You're in lecture all day long, and then you have a test 3 times a week. So you're studying after you get released from lecture at 5 p.m. And so you talk to no one. You don't have any sort of encouragement. There's no positive outlet. There's only competition. And it was the first time where I was placed in a real world environment, really, where I didn't have any sort of outlet. I just
Mm,
had input. And so I started to struggle mentally because I didn't have a support system in medical school. And so, but that pain, before the promise can, before the promise can meet the payoff, there's always a process. And that process was painful to me, but the result of it gave me so much power and influence to speak from. Hey girl, I know you're depressed. I know you don't feel like getting up. I know you've taken your medication and you still don't feel like you can get up. I know that you haven't had any positive outlet. But I've been there. You just got to keep going. You just got to hang in there. You just got to put one foot in front of the other. So that gave me a power to speak from. So that passion, that purpose, that power, it all was wrapped in pain. And I think the message that I want to continue to say as a doctor and as a pageant queen: don't stop when you feel the pain. You're going to get the gain. You just got to keep going.
That was beautiful. I want to remind you or share with our audience an impact that you have had on me just during, this particular interview and also before. But you said when you were 15 years old and you were sitting there in front of that interview that you were stating kind of a message to yourself. That's power. But you also did it again. And I want to
Mhm.
remind you of it just for a second. About 3 years before you actually graduated from medical school, in that great blog post that you write, you
Mhm.
said, it's going to be worth it
Mhm.
all. Was it worth it?
Oh yeah, it was.
You
And
knew.
the fulfillment of that came when I gave up my crown on stage just a couple months ago in August in Las Vegas. And I remember I couldn't see anyone's face. So it just made me look to the heavens. And I was thinking, thank you, God, for everything that I thought, every powerful moment
Mm,
I had, every pain I went through. I didn't stop, and I'm right here. It took 20 years later for me to have this moment. And if I would have stopped, I would have never had it. If I wouldn't have laid to rest the 334 COVID patients, if
mm,
I would have just stopped in my pain and not walked through it to the other side, I wouldn't have this moment to know that you were there with me the whole time. And 20 years later, it was worth it.
mm. That's super powerful. I do want to ask you, along your journey of, I'm just trying to imagine, right? Like we all overcome different adversities in our career or in our life, and you always seem to face it. You use your Christianity, you smile, you use that background in the pageant world, but there's got to be somebody out there, I'm sure, along your way that looked at you on your path to becoming a doctor and go, her? can I take her seriously?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
is she for real? Like, what was it like during like the job interview process? The people, like that pageant background of what I know of it had to have helped you get through that.
Yeah, I mean, at 13 and 14 and 15 years old, I was learning how to talk to adults in
Mm,
a way that I communicated a message of clarity. And that's what some people don't understand is that the pageant life actually helps you facilitate a voice. And not only that, how to communicate it clearly in a message in a world where people are giving so many messages and it's so confusing. Make your life one of definition. And when you are in the pageant world, you learn how to speak and how to speak clearly and how to use your voice to communicate a message. And so when I was doing these different interviews, that was natural to me, talking to people and engaging in conversation. So I mean, the pageant world has helped me in so many ways. And of course there's tons of misconceptions. There'll always be. There's bad apples everywhere we go, unfortunately, in every way of life and politics and education in government and pageants in the hospital. You know, we're not going to be able to escape judgmental people.
no,
But we don't have to be that way. We get to choose how to respond and how to love people. And I think that's one thing about being a Christian. Even Gandhi says, "I love your Christ, I don't love your Christians." It's because it's not about us, it's about loving people. And that's the message, that's the crux of everything. How can we love ourselves well enough to love each other equally as well?
that's so amazing. Like, I love all the energy, but also about like just being a positive force all the time. Just constantly just being a positive force, just constantly thinking great things are going to happen. And you're just the resilience and the continue. You just keep going. All I have to do is continue on and keep going. I want to ask you about the impact of women in your life. We've talked about our great friend Laura Smith, but you're a third generation title holder. You have
That's
your
right.
mother. Can
My
you tell me about
grandmother,
them?
my mother, yeah. You know, the greatest impact that you have as an adult comes from the support you have in adolescence. And it just goes to show like the women in your life are so important. And it doesn't have to be your biological family. It doesn't have to be, someone that shares your DNA. You have to be able to surround yourself around people like Laura, like my mom, like my grandmother, that says you can do it, believe in yourself, but put in the work. My grandmother would say, pretty is as pretty does. It's the truth. It's cliche, but it's the truth. Like, you are your character, you are your actions, you are all the things that you do behind the scenes. Your heart is what matters, and when your heart is in the right place, it shows up on your face. And that is the message that I wanted America to have for me, to all the women of America. My own stage question when I won was, what do you think the biggest challenge facing women today is? And for me, I was a single, unmarried woman, professional. I'm 31 years old. It was my self-worth. And my answer to that question was, it's my self-worth. I have to be able to look into the mirror and say, I'm not a sum total of all the pain that I've been through, of all the challenges. I am who I say I am. And I look at that girl in the mirror and I say, you can do it. Why can you do it? Because you love yourself and you're not going to give up. And that's why I won Miss for America Strong, is because when I looked into the mirror, I was able to face my weakness, and through that weakness and through that humility, gain a strength that says it doesn't matter what you face. When you love yourself, you can overcome and then help other people overcome too.
That was great. Thank you. I'm trying to, I want us all to take in those three P's, right?
Yeah.
Purpose. Can you repeat
Yes.
them for us?
Yeah, purpose. Well, what are you doing, that wakes you up, that drives you? Passion. What motivates you? What's the energy you're using to pursue that purpose? And then power, and that power is often associated with pain, what passion and what purpose have you overcome to elevate? And it's interesting, a cool story. You see this little Barbie behind me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I did that pageant with Miss Laura, I didn't win. I didn't make the top 10. It was one of the first times that I ever had like a lot of pain as a girl.
Mm.
And my dad, when you're in the pageant life, your family is with you. But my dad, he had a dream of me in 2008, June 8, 2008, of me winning a crown in a white dress. That was 2008. And
Don't
didn't
make me
come
cry.
true. Yeah, it didn't come true. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't come true. I didn't win that day. I didn't win that day. And I went to college. I honestly didn't think I would compete in a pageant ever again, just because I didn't know that there was going to be pageants for me, an older professional girl. I made it through medical school. I survived a relationship with an addict. I got into a romantic relationship with an addict I didn't know was struggling with addiction. I made it through residency. I gained 60 pounds. I survived depression. I lost that 60 pounds. I went on to publish research for addiction after I was able to survive and then thrive from that relationship. Then I went straight into COVID.
Oh,
And my patients
no.
started dying and dying and dying. January 2021, I had a patient die every single day in the hospital. And then I was hospitalized for 8 days with acute cholecystitis, and I got super sick. And,
Oh my
all these
goodness.
sorts of mental and physical scars. And then this pageant came, this opportunity came, and I won Miss South Carolina for America. And then I went to Las Vegas and I won Miss for America. And my dad, when I won, was bawling because he remembered the
Oh
dream he
no.
had of me in 2008 winning on the stage in a white dress. And so someone gave me this Barbie. And the reason why I tell that story is because when you choose to be resilient and to not give up on yourself, you don't know who you're touching. You don't know who you're impacting. And my dad held his hands up in the air and he was bawling because it wasn't just for me that I won, it was for him also.
Mm-hmm.
That dream that he had of me in 2008 came true in 2021.
That's incredible. He saw it. He got to see
He
it
he he
happen.
he saw it. So, I say it to whoever's listening. I know you've had a dream. I know you've had a prompting. I know you have a desire. You don't fight the process. Walk through it. Gain the strength that you need, that sometimes comes through pain. But mostly just don't give up. Don't give up.
Your story is incredible. Thank you. That understanding your purpose and then passion and then pain, that's your
Mhm,
entire story. It's almost
mhm,
as if at one time that pageant world that left you so strong
mhm,
gave you this ability to become the doctor, right? It's
mhm,
like, okay, we know who you are. You went through it. You said you struggled with some testing at times going through that, but you still came out because of all of this, I guess, resilience and power that the
mhm,
pageant world taught you. Then when you're going through your struggle, I'm going to cry. When you're
mhm,
going through your struggles of, being that doctor and going through things in your personal life and going through the COVID pandemic, you get the opportunity to rejoin the pageant world that was calling to you. Like if that's not all of this, purpose and
full
passion,
circle.
It's like a full circle. It's so
Full
wild to
circle.
me. Like
Yeah.
everything was perfectly timed in your life, and you just were such a believer. Like, it's all going to be worth it. It's all going to be okay. I'm just going to push through it. It's my purpose. This is my passion. I can go through this pain. Is just incredible. You watch every step of the way, and I'm like, dang, Dr. Rachel, you just did it.
I've actually put a post on social media today because a lot of times we live on this timeline. We live from minute to minute, but it's actually the moments that are life changing.
Mm,
And if we could ever really wrap our minds around living in the next 24 hours, living in the moment, that's ultimately why I did the pageant too, is because I didn't want to waste my time anymore. So many people were dying around me. There were so many moments, that I was the last person to say goodbye. I was the last person to say I'm here with you, and it forced me to say, hey, the next season of life that I have, I want to live from moment to moment, not from minute to minute, because the moments matter. The moments matter when we are engaged with each other and we're living knowing who we are and the love that we have to give.
thank you. I just want to share really quickly as we come to wrap it up here. I've been so inspired by your story. I can't thank you enough for coming on here and sharing your story, but also from everything that I've learned from you. I want to say thank you for that. I feel like I'm a better woman because of you, and I'm
Oh,
sure that some of our listeners are, but I'm taking away from all of this to understand where my power is, where my passion is, where my
mhm.
purpose is, and to really know that you can grow from pain. And to
Yeah,
hear your story is just incredible. I do want to say, a quick thank you to Laura Smith. This has impacted my life as she has. And
yeah.
Dr. Rachel, do you have any final words that you want to share?
Um, thank you. Thank you for being available to do this and putting your gifts to use. If we could all join together and use our gifts to serve each other, I think that we could really impact the world. So thank you for doing this, inviting me and using your time
Thank you.
to encourage women.
Thank you so much. Hey, if you're listening, thank you so much for watching or listening to our podcast on Dr. Rachel Fenters. Make sure that you share with somebody that you know so that they can learn from her and understand their passion, their power, their purpose, and the pain that they can go through. I want to say thank you for being on the Break Glass podcast. I'm your host, Cheryl Coco. They call me Cup of Cocoa. Join us next time for more inspiring stories, just like our friend, Dr. Rachel. Dr. Rachel, thank you again. Bye.
Right.